Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Daisy. For today's video, I will be reading my subscribers' spooky stories. So grab your snacks, grab your kobika, and let's get straight into it. Hello Daisy. I love your stories, but they freak me out at work because I'm usually the first one here, and it leaves me all paranoid till someone shows up. Anyways, a little background. I'm Native American from a tribe in Arizona. We aren't supposed to talk about these stories, but this one always gives me chills. This is a story my dad shared with me. He had never been to my mom's reservation before, where many villages are situated on top of mesas. So, the first time my mom took him out there, they were having a traditional night dance. My auntie took them on a small tour to show him around the village. At the end of our mesa, in the older part of the village, there was a little shack, maybe like 5 feet tall, with a small door. But it was chained up, and it had a huge lock on it and was covered in prayer feathers. My aunt just quickly walked by it, and my mom too, but my dad was curious about it and wanted to check it out. As he got closer, my aunt yelled at him, "Don't get near it, leave it alone, let's go." My dad looked at the shack again and started to walk closer to the door because it had a little opening from the door you could look into. And when he was about arm's length away, my mom yelled back at him, "Donnie, let's go." And that's when my dad heard what sounded like an old rocking chair going back and forth, creaking slowly. My dad tried to look inside and said, "Someone's in there." My mom and aunt grabbed my dad's arm and pulled him away. But as he was being pulled, he turned back to look at the door, and he heard the rocking chair creak faster and faster. Then it sounded like someone got up from the chair and began running towards the door, and whatever it was, slamming into it. My dad asked, "What is that?" And I'm not sure what the word is called in our tribe, but it was a bad medicine man from long ago. My aunt explained to him, "That's a bad old man. He practiced bad medicine and would target children or young teenagers to keep his youth." She explained that they locked him up and blessed a bunch of prayer feathers and left them around the door and around the shack. And every month, someone comes by to bless the feathers or lay more down and burn cedar near it. Well, as the night went on, my dad wasn't focused on the night dances and wanted to go see what was in there. So he said he got up and went to take another look at it. And this time, he didn't get too close, but he walked around the shack just to see the size of it. And that's when he started to smell an awful smell. He told me it was like a dead animal carcass rotting away. He covered his nose and then started to get lightheaded and felt really sick. He went to one knee and started to vomit, and then he could hear a fast drum beat. Our traditional dances, the drums aren't fast, they're slow, and the only time that it happens is during a prayer ceremony. So my dad heard it fast, coming from the shack, and that's when my uncle, my aunt's husband, ran over, picked him up, and pulled him away. He asked if he was okay and had him eat some cedar. As my dad was being pulled away, he could hear the rocking chair being dragged around the shack and banging on the door. This ceremony to put the medicine man away happened a long time ago. We're talking about a good solid 80 plus years ago from that time, so even longer now. My dad said that that was the first time he had ever experienced such an evil presence. And now to this day, when we go up there, the prayer feathers are still there. And that chain and lock are still on that small shack to keep the bad medicine man away. Hi Daisy, I found your channel by coincidence and knew I had to share my stories. When my dad was a younger man, he worked for a police department in Mexico. He didn't have personal transportation at that time, so the only way to get from his small town to the city was by train. One morning, around 4 a.m., he went to the train station and walked up to the waiting area. There, he saw what he could only describe as an old man hunched over, waiting for the train as well. The man was all covered up, and my dad couldn't make out any features. He walked up next to him and simply said, "Good morning." The old man didn't acknowledge him, but my dad thought nothing of it. When the train arrived, my dad, without looking at the old man, said, "Looks like it's here. Let's get on." However, when he looked over, the man was gone. He thought it was odd, but decided to mind his own business and got on the train. My dad loved sitting in the last car to look out, watching the station disappear in the distance. As he looked out, he saw something. As the train sped along, it grew closer, and he could make out 2 red dots. Then, more of whatever it was came into view. A horse with red eyes, charging at the train, or perhaps at my father. I say perhaps because he is very sensitive to these things, as I am, but he always tries to find logic. Eventually, the train gained enough speed, and the horse couldn't catch up and disappeared. He never saw the old man or the horse again. But he also never sat in the last cart either. The next story happened to me when I was in my late teens. I have a sister with autism, and like other kids, she would say she had an imaginary friend. In our house, we often heard the house settling, and of course, things fell. Cups, plates, pens, but nothing big or shocking. For the most part, we could justify these happenings, but for a few unexplained occurrences, we would jokingly say it was my sister's friend. Eventually, I began to feel that something was there. Out of the 3 kids my parents had, I'm the more sensitive one to things of the unexplained. Many times, I would be on the couch watching TV or reading, and I'd notice the lights flicker. It would continue until I eventually said, "Stop playing with that," and then it would stop. I felt like it was a little girl wanting to play. I say a little girl based on the feelings it gave me and the times I felt my pants being pulled as if I was walking with a child. As a child, I wanted to be a priest, but never followed through with it for personal reasons. That being said, I decided if this was a child, they might not know they were not of this world and might not be able to pass on. So, one night, with the fireplace lit behind me, I decided to talk to it. I told her, "I don't know if you're good or not, but I ask that you leave my family alone. Also, if you're a little girl, I don't know if you know this or not, but you're not alive. I don't know what happened to you, but I'll pray for you and hope you get to cross." At that point, I heard what sounded like a little girl giggling just 10 feet from me around a corner. I prayed for about 10 minutes and then went back to my room, praying until I fell asleep. I do at times feel her around, but she isn't as active. When I feel her, I tell her to behave. I am now an electrician and I can't explain why the lights flickered. Now this last story is one that is still ongoing. We bought land around 2019. It's 10.3 acres with a small stream passing through, dividing it into a higher and lower elevation. The higher elevation is more forested, with a round area which we planned to put a horse stable. My younger sister was given a horse for her 15th birthday, and she was riding up and down the property. When they reached the clearing on the higher level, she said she saw a figure on the opposite side of the clearing. It appeared to have the body of a cow with the head of a deer, but she couldn't get a good view of it because the horse also saw it and decided to disobey her, running back home until the horse stopped. We brushed it off thinking it was probably one of the neighbor's cows that got out again. When we went to look, we didn't see anything. Every time I go up there, I always announce myself and tell it I mean no harm to it or the vegetation around it, in case it's a spirit of sorts. Well, after that, after finishing a family game, we heard what sounded like a heavy hoofed animal stepping on a wooden bridge we had over the street. It was almost as if it had never crossed a bridge before and was scared to step on it. I recognized the sound from when our horse first crossed the bridge. My sister and I exchanged knowing glances, both acknowledging that we heard it. Well, we went to sleep right after, but not before locking the doors. The last occurrence was a few weeks ago. My dad invited 2 friends and their kids over one night to the land. The friends decided to explore the land, with the kids eager to join. However, one friend cautioned to them saying, "Okay, you can come, but be careful. There's a headless girl out here that will grab your hand and haunt you." Needless to say, the kids returned to their mom scared. As they walked, they openly discussed trapping some wildlife: rabbits, hogs, deer, and more. When they reached the clearing, one of the friends, who scared the kids, stopped and whispered to the other, "What's that over there?" He pointed to where my sister had seen the creature, and they both claimed to see what looked like 2 red eyes. Then the eyes moved up as if it was crouching and tried to hide, but knew it had been spotted. They ran back and now only visit during the day. I suggested that since they were talking about trapping animals, it was probably trying to defend the land. I've installed cameras to monitor the land. We have hogs, deer, rabbits, owls, foxes, coyotes, and other small wildlife. I have yet to capture anything like what my sister or the guys mentioned. Thank you for reading these, and if anything changes on the land, I'll be sure to follow up. I have a lot of paranormal stories that I experienced during my childhood, but I'll save those for another time. For now, I'll share my parents' paranormal encounter. I believe I was around 3 to 5 years old when this experience occurred. I have 2 siblings who were a bit older than I was at the time. My family and I lived in a 2-bedroom apartment complex. My siblings and I would share 1 bedroom together, and my parents would have the master bedroom. Back then, my parents were having arguments almost every day. Those type of arguments would just continue to bring more and more negative energy into the apartment. One night, around 1:30 a.m., my siblings and I had already fallen asleep, and my parents were in their room arguing. Well, as my parents continued arguing, a few minutes later, their argument got interrupted by their door handle being shaken vigorously and then stopped a few seconds later. This obviously caught their attention, and they immediately stopped their conversation. My mom thought it was me or one of my siblings who had woken up wanting to come inside the room. My mom told my dad, "Ya ves, ya despertamos a los niños." My dad, without opening the door just yet, told us, "Regresen a su cuarto, a dormir, niños." 5 minutes later, the door handle was shaken again. At this point, my dad had gotten annoyed, thinking it was me and my siblings playing around at such a late time of the night, and went to open the door. But as he opened the door, he noticed nobody was there, only a narrow dark hallway facing my parents' room. My parents went inside our bedroom and saw that all 3 of us were sound asleep. They closed our bedroom door, went back to their room, and locked and closed the door behind them. Around 2:30 a.m., once again, their door handle started shaking. But this time, it was also being twisted and banged as if whoever was behind the door was desperately trying to get in. My siblings and I are very deep sleepers, so we didn't hear anything that was going on. This obviously scared the living daylights out of my parents, and they started arguing again about who was going to check out what was causing all the commotion behind the door. Finally, after a while of debating who was going to go, they decided to go check it out together. My dad opened the door while my mom was hiding behind him. Once again, there was absolutely nobody or anything that they could see. Only a pitch black hallway. They stood there for about less than 5 seconds and noticed that it was now our bedroom door handle being shaken. It's important to mention that my siblings and my bedroom was less than 4 steps away from my parents' bedroom. So, as they approached our bedroom door, they opened it and saw all 3 of us were still asleep. Moments later, as my parents were trying to figure out what was happening, it was now our closet door handle being twisted. And they said they could hear faint scratching noises coming from behind the closet door. My parents did not open the door and quickly ran out of the room and went straight into the room to jump in their bed and hide underneath their bed sheets. I know, right? They just left us there all alone the entire night. Our heroes. Shortly, nothing happened after that. They stayed up all night until the sun was out, and 2 months later, we moved out to a different place. But little did they know, whatever was causing all that ruckus would also end up following us to our new home. What's up, Daisy? My name is Ronnie. This story is actually from my dad. When I was just a baby, my parents used to leave me in the care of one of their good friends, Carmen. At the time, I'm not sure how long my parents and Carmen knew each other, but she actually had a sister that she was taking care of too. Some time passed, and my parents didn't hear anything from her until one day, they decided to go visit her to see if she was okay. When they got to her house, Carmen explained to them why she went MIA for a while, and it was due to her sister passing away. Slowly but surely, Carmen explained to my parents that she feels her sister's presence around the house. My mom acknowledges the spiritual world and ghost. On the other hand, my dad, being a non-believer, would love to mess around about the topic a lot. As time went by, they went over to visit Carmen and for her to take care of me. My dad wanted to mess around with my mom and Carmen about her sister and how spirits aren't real. In this house, there's a long hallway with 2 rooms on the left and 1 on the right. Carmen's sister slept in the room to the right. As my dad was teasing, taunting about the presence, he started to walk down the hallway, and that's when it happened. My dad froze up in the middle of the hallway, so my mom went to check up on him. My mom said as soon as she touched his arm, he was freezing cold and extremely pale. When they left the house, my dad told my mom what he saw. He said, "I swear to God, I saw her sister peek out of the room. She popped her head out of the doorway, and within a blink of an eye, she was gone." Now that I'm older and I ask him about this encounter, he tells me, don't ever taunt or mess around about ghosts or anything in that nature. So that was it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to everyone that wrote in their spooky stories. Seriously, you guys taking out the time to send your story in means so much, so thank you. And if you have a spooky story that you'd like to share, feel free to send it in at daicyspooks@gmail.com. That information will be in the description box for you guys. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys all in my next one. Bye!